Hey,
You're
Tom,
on
real
the rest of
quick.
my case.
Hey, Tom, really quick. Is speaking of that, controlling that rage, that anger. Um, I was visualizing that as you were speaking and thinking about a multitude of fighters simultaneously. And I don't know, for some reason, Zab Judah ran through my head. Thinking about one fight when he lost his control. I think it was pretty much at the end of the fight. He tossed his chair. I just happened to be at that fight, Mike and I both. So is that something, that discipline, is that something that, and this is Jeff, Eddie, all you guys can answer this, is that something that your coach have to constantly remind you so it become embedded in you? Or as you becoming a professional fighter, is that something that just is like a second instinct? Is that, how does that um, become a part of your boxing life, so to speak?
Jeff, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think the fight you're talking about was when Zab fought Costa Zoo.
Costa Zoo, yeah.
Yeah, but look, it's just discipline. It's really it's yourself. I mean, if you're proud of yourself and and you're proud of the people that are around you, you don't want to do that, Daryl. I mean, sometimes you get hot-headed and stuff, but it's embarrassing. And then you've embarrassed the people like the customers, or like my trainer Johnny Lewis, or the people that I'm around. I embarrass them, and hopefully you learn not to do that. And that's my path. I wouldn't want to embarrass the people that are with me. I mean, and like I said, sometimes you lose control like Zab did. And, somebody, if I was there, I would have grabbed him really quick and got him out of there. I think they left him in that position for too long. And I know it's hard. The guys are cranking. Obviously, I would have just grabbed him and whatever I had to do would have taken him out of the ring and got him out of there to save him from that embarrassment.
And I love Zab. As a brother of mine, obviously.
I love Zab too.
I didn't want to, don't want to call him out and don't think that was a bad thing. But it just, like I said, a multitude of fight. Mike ran through my mind. I've seen Mike lose it against
Lennox.
over in England. What's the guy?
Savarese.
Right.
Yeah, Skip Savarese. I mean, he knocked him out.
Lou, yeah.
I've seen a lot of
Mike lose a lot of
that level.
Well, there's also an incident with Evander Holyfield with an ear situation that Mike seemed to have lost the understanding of the Queensberry rules of boxing. But like Jeff said, it does take discipline, and that's something that you learn to control. Sometimes, there's all of us can have a little street element where you like in Evander's instance, Evander's headbutting Mike. Nobody's protecting Mike, so Mike brought it to a street level, and he did something worse to Evander. Is it justifiable? Is it boxing rules? No. So, but it does take discipline, and that's something that you need to have to be a real true professional.
Tom, I think you said something great when you're inside the ring, is that the fighter can control that. But outside the ring, Jeff made a great point, is like you have to get the fighter away from that. You have to get them away from the situation. We were just talking this a couple of weekends ago about the Lennox Lewis press conference. Mike grabbed a fire extinguisher. If it wasn't for, people around him to be like, Mike, put the fire extinguisher away. You don't want to do that. I think, just like Jeff said, you got to pull the fighter away. And inside the ring, you can't do much, But outside the ring, the longer you keep them in that situation, I think the water boils, so to say.
Good point.
There are many fighters like that.
Part of my job was to make sure that I protected Mike on every scale, whether it was in the ring, outside the ring. That's a part of my job. I wanted to make sure that he never lost control, and I kind of believe that, Tom. Everywhere we went, I wasn't this kind of guy that we locked Mike or we kept everybody away. I wanted Mike to be the people's person, because without the people, we're nobody. And Mike loves everybody. That people don't realise what a great human Mike is. Mike is one of the beautiful people I've ever met. And when everybody's stopping people from seeing him and pushing people around, people get cranky. They get agitated. When I was with Mike, you sit there and talk to everybody, mate. These people are the people who made you famous to the people.
Hey Jeff, adjust your screen a little bit. Half of your head is cut off. There you go.
I mean, boxing's come a long way in the last couple of years now, especially in the UK. It's a dominant scene here. We've got Joshua, we've got Tyson Fury, and there's obviously you got Deontay Wilder yourselves in the States there. But there's a lot of noise coming back. The feelings that this sport has another resurrection, and a lot of kids are interested in it. So, Mom, what I wanted to get out today was, regards to a young kid watching this show. How could they sort of harness those skills and abilities and sort of progress further in this by utilizing things you've said?
I'll interrupt and say one thing. Humility. The first thing you have to take into that boxing gym is humility. That's it. The rest will come into place.
I would volunteer.
I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Okay, just real quick on that note, I would volunteer this. I believe there's a digression in talent and trainers. I think the boxing is predominantly run by crooks, thieves, and ignorant people. Better, Cuss would say they're better shoemakers than boxing trainers. So, and people don't ask, who's he fighting? Like a smart manager, they only ask how much.
Yeah.
So it's a business, okay, and that's a reality. And unfortunately, ever since bare knuckle days, there's been a digression of talent. Just because the equipment in sport is as it is. Not to say there aren't great fighters along the way, but the reality is you have to study, and you can do it better now than ever before. You got to look at YouTube, look at videos, look at guys like Jeff Fennick, look at guys like Salvador Sanchez, look at guys like Mike Tyson. Learn defense. Your coach won't train you. When you've got boxing coaches in the ring, and I'm talking about fight trainer of the year, and they're using these foam noodles and they're throwing them at you, they're waving at you, and you're blocking punches like this. I've never been attacked by a tomahawk in my entire life of boxing as long ago as that was. I think boxing is still an admired sport. Unfortunately, in the States, here in America, there's other sports that are attracting the higher quality athletes. If you took away, for instance, every linebacker in football and put them in a boxing gym since they were 12 years old, you'd have a pool of heavyweight champions and contenders that would be phenomenal. But that's a whole other another part of the conversation. So I think if somebody wants to be a fighter, you have to be studious, and you have to practice, you have to sacrifice, and you have to really truly commit to learning the skills of the sport. And Jeff and Eddie and anybody else that wants to add something to it, but I really do believe that you're out there on your own more than ever.
What about this discipline thing? I'm stuck on this discipline thing in the ring, Jeff, Tom, and Eddie. Is it fair to say that the more disciplined you are in the ring, probably out of the ring as well, equally so, would you say that those fighters have the higher percentage chance of being have the better W column opposed to the better L column?
Hey, Darryl, it's not the toughest guys that win fights. It's the smartest guys. It's the guys that, like Tom was saying, that learn not to get hit. They're the guys. You're getting hit in fights. You're not going to win fights. Listen, everybody talks, this guy had a big heart. This guy, everybody's heart's the same size. It's first from the head and then from the heart. Everything comes from here. Nothing comes from here. We all got the same thing in there. Yeah. It's what you got up here that differentiates different people. If you're smart and you can work out what's happening, you'll get along. Listen, let me tell you what boxing teach. I don't call myself a boxing coach. I teach my kids because I can show them. And this noodle stuff, that's crap. But what person? I always, one of the things I teach my fighters is, if we get knocked down, how to get up. Have you ever been taught that when you get knocked down, you got to stay there, don't get up too quick? People don't teach it, So it's good to know that when I listen to Tom and I talk about Cuss, they teach you everything. I tell my boys, listen, nobody wants to get knocked down, but just say you do it like Zab that day. He got up too quick. Had Zab stayed down, there was a couple of seconds left to go in the round. He survives around, and who knows what would have happened. So
in this day and age, there's definitely sort of the science behind it.
Jeff, that's great. That's such a great, scientific piece to just stay down for a little longer for the neurological system to recalibrate. I mean, what you just said is a pearl for fighters to hear.
Scott, just something what happens if you get knocked out. No, we teach you how to punch. We teach you how to make punches. I teach my boys, If the worst case scenario happens, you get dropped, stay there. Look at me. I'll tell you. We'll get you up. Yeah, there's a method to the madness.
That's a fucking pearl.
I want to add to that. There's a few formulas to that. You know, some boxers are successful inside the ring but not out. Some outside but not in. Some
Sure.
both. One key formula that plays a big role, and it goes all the way down the line from those that's been successful after the sport, or within the sport, whether they've become champions or not. You need an advisor. You need
Yeah.
someone next to you. You need that Customato. You need that Sandy Sadler. You need that Angie Dundee. You know, uh, who of late that I can really remember. I mean, those are just the greatest mentors that you could have because it's not just about teaching you how to throw a punch. You have to live outside it. You know, this humility that comes with that. Yeah, you can have like that tiger killer instinct. You know, you can beat all that. Muhammad Ali was it. Tyson was it. He lost control and stuff like that. But up to a certain point, he was being guided. That light burnt out. It's still in his heart. But once Cuss got sick, in fact, I recall because I think Kevin went with you to Buffalo, Tom, when you and I fought. Because Cuss was
Correct.
sick, I believe. So you know, when that is like that synergy, when it breaks, you know, you have many greats. You can name the greats from various, you know, parts of the world. Jeff, an example. Jeff, you didn't really, with all due respect, you're my brother. You didn't have that one person that says, "Hey, Jeff, come on, man. You know what? Let's take this money. Let's do this." You know, but that wouldn't take a million or two from you. See, every fighter has had that advisor, financial advisor, so-called friend that steals from them and all that. You know, it's bad enough the guy, you know, all boxers, I don't give a fuck. Everybody has a psychological imbalance, but all boxers have even a much more. It has nothing to do with boxing. It's
No.
just the way
And
it
yeah,
is.
on
Some
that
you
basis, I mean,
come from the
we spoke
ghetto, you
obviously.
know. We
Yeah.
aren't learned. We aren't
You know.
taught a lot of things. You know, we learned that
So
throughout
with
life.
like we spoke about kids being motivated. Let's talk about the current
That's where
situation
I
with
was
Mike now.
going. But that's where I was
Yeah,
going.
Mike's
See,
Mike's
so
being motivated. Sorry, Mike's being
right
motivated
when he
now
was a
to get
kid
into the ring.
at 13, right, but at 13, the same thing with Tom, the same thing with me. We lose focus, and that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Tom, in fact, I just joined Jeff into a team that we hope to take to Spain late next year for the same thing we did in Canada and Puerto Rico. Tom, we have to teach them young. Not everyone is going to be a champ, and that's where we get to meet their mentors. You know, we bring other former world champs,
Yeah.
and we start mentoring them, just guiding them in a different avenue than what they've been guided. Not everything is hitting those little things and trying to be the best on video and all that. You have to live a life outside of boxing, you know. So
Kamel,
you
Kamel, you know, you keep on asking a similar question. Where's boxing? Where's boxing
Yeah.
going? And you know, I think we all kind of alluded to bits and pieces of it. But I know you alluded to that earlier. And you know, one of the answers I keep on coming up in my head is look who Mike adopted to hold the mitts. Rafael Cordeiro. I mean, he from Shuto Box, I mean, he is one of the best strikers out there in the martial art world. So, you know, I hate to say it, but in my own opinion, fellas, it's a fusion right now. Even Mike, who was the greatest of my time, there's a fusion of mixed martial arts and boxing right now that it's unseen. And I think trainers, coaches from different countries, which I've seen in the Olympics, are fusing with American coaches. And I think we're going to see USA boxing run by a Cuban, believe it or not. We might see people from USA boxing training with a Russian coach. I know it sounds awkward, but I've started to see that in other sports. So I see the fusion going on right now. And I can't ignore, you know, the international combination and also the MMA combination that's happening to boxing.
Wow.
Yeah,
agree.
there's
I
definitely
agree.
crossover.
Mike always
There is a
said
big
to me,
crossover. Yeah.
hey Camille, Mike always said to me when traveling or whatnot, just asking certain things about a lot of the things we're talking about, you know, he always said that, and Tom, you're probably going to be able to pick this up. That, and Jeff as well, all of you guys actually, that boxing is a thinking man's sport. It's like what you're saying, Jeff. It's not necessarily what's inside that chest cavity. It is in your mind, because Mike said you can do something to make the guy you're fighting do exactly what you want him to do. So when he commit to that, you're ready to punch him right in the face.
Yeah, Daryl, I love how you're like really focusing on the psychology of boxing. That's really like such, I mean, that could be a whole podcast.
We'll bring that one in next. I mean, just to close up now, because I know we're all pressed for time. Where I want to be with this one now is with Mike coming up to this fight at his age. A lot of people saying he's too old for this. He shouldn't have done this. It's a risk for his age. You guys have been there. I know you just come back from there, Scott, and obviously with Tom, you know, you're back and forth in camp. So you guys give a lowdown of what's happening there.
Do you know what the greatest?
I'll lead off just because I'll probably get like a base hit. You know, these guys could probably hit a home run. But Mike is trying to balance mind and body right now, in my opinion. I think that his muscle memory, his neurological memory, the modalities from a physical therapy or sports medicine standpoint that he's using is optimal. He's really incorporating whatever is at his fingertips right now to make sure he's at the best human performance. So I see that at this point, I think the next couple of weeks, his body will peak, and then it's going to be the people that are around him to support his psychology. And Mike's, when I saw him, he was in a good state of mind and a very relaxed mode. And he actually stated, "We're going to get him."
I think Mike has thrown out the most amazing message ever, that at 54, you can still look how Mike was a few years ago when he was unfit and unhealthy. To change his life around and do what he's done now is the most amazing thing that he can do for anybody. I don't care if he fights or if he does anything else, but what he's done with his life at the moment is the greatest message ever, that you can turn anything around and be great again. And just looking at Mike, forget about him fighting, he's great. I love Mike. I'm so proud of him.
Agreed.
It's enough to motivate anybody.
100%.
It is. Yeah. I mean, from Tom, you've seen it from day one. You've been, you know, from the age of 13 when you guys were there, and to this day now, how much has changed?
So it's kind of funny is Mike's kind of reverted back. So we're getting feedback. Mike's kind of reverted back to being that young teenager again. And what I mean by that is he's a student again. He's actually listening and wanting to learn and to check and to reaffirm a skill and a quality of performance unlike what I've seen in past training camps. And that's wonderful. So he's motivated, which means that he's dangerous. Now, let's think about this. At 54, could you see Joe Frazier in the ring? Could you see, I mean, go up and down the litany of champions throughout the history of the sport. How many of them in their 50s could get back into the sport? I know Jack Johnson was doing exhibitions for money into his 50s and 60s. And I never have seen them, so I don't know at what level or quality of performance they were. But the reality is Mike's is an exceptional athlete. And so he's got incredible speed, he's got power, he has experience. He's at a stage where he's rebuilding the confidence and the momentum it takes to perform at an upper level. Now, what's also interesting is this is probably the greatest example of a midlife crisis, okay? You've got some people will just go buy a Corvette because they're feeling like they're getting older. Mike says, Father Time is knocking on my door, and one day I'm going to meet my maker. But before that happens, I still have things I'm going to do on my terms. And he's going to come out, he's going to reinvent, he's going to reintroduce himself. Now, what he's also doing is creating a platform for former athletes and champions and elite athletes to once again exhibit their and demonstrate their levels of excellence. We're all a little bit narcissistic. We all got on stage. We all performed, right? So all of a sudden, take that all away. Well, you still have experience. You still have an ego. You still kind of like to know, be in the newspaper and kind of read what they say about you. And if you ask Joe Montana, an American football player, hey Joe, You're down by 4. But last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Do you want the football for one more 2-minute drill? Like, yeah, give me the ball. I can do it, right? Just like if you ask Mariano Rivera, the greatest baseball closer in Major League Baseball, you say, can you close out Game 7 in a World Series? Yeah, just give me the ball. Give me 2 innings, I'll do it, right? So athletes, champions, and I was not one. Okay, I didn't be on a couple amateur titles, but again, I keep referencing. We've got Jeff Fennick here. If you say, hey Jeff, come on, one more shot. Would you like to have another opportunity to shine? He said, of course he would. Absolutely.
Go on, Jeff.
So that's what champions do. They rise to the occasion. So what you're seeing is Mike challenge himself.
Get ready.
So Tom,
and create a platform for other athletes to do the same.
So Tom, how is this? First of all, Tom, you need to back up a little bit. The sunlight coming through your blinds keep crossing your face like a razor blade.
I see it. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Okay, that's the first thing. The second one is, now, with all that being said, that's very interesting because that makes me wonder the mindsets of these two guys. You fighters on this podcast can answer this. Now, we all say that this is an exhibition match. Mike just said we're going to get him. How many rounds, how many seconds, or what punch level is it going to take for all of that midlife crisis to kick inside the ring and you say, fuck that, I'm going to whoop your ass?
Well, so I'm not only going to speak about my little bit of experience, okay? In my amateur career, I had three, I'm sorry, if I were to look at my 3 toughest fights, 2 of them were exhibitions. So it can escalate and it can become real intense, and that can happen.
That's my point.
Now, I've had a conversation with Mike about this, Daryl, and all of us, and to the world. I said, what's your statement? What do you want to do, Mike? How are we preparing you for this? He said, Tommy, I think it's a better statement if I go 8 rounds. He goes, I'm going to show. I said, well, if we do that, the idea is you're going to have to outbox the boxer. And so we're working on boxing skills. If you go out looking for the knockout, you can oftentimes lose by decision. So it's come to my attention that apparently the WBC is sanctioning something. There's going to be officials and there's some sort of belt that's going to be given out, all of which I think is a terrible idea. I really, truly do.
Yep.
I do not like this. Whoever's making these decisions are not boxing people. These are people that are looking for sales or for network or something else. It is a very bad decision because now you're talking about escalating the level of performance. This should be an exhibition. This should be an 8-round. 2 fighters have egos. 2 fighters are coasting on experience. They're coasting on being a champion. And now to raise the stakes of now you're going to fight for a title. You're going to fight for who's winning that belt. I do not think that's a good idea.
I don't agree with that.
Especially this is Mike's first match in over 15 years. And you've got, Roy Jones was 3 years ago. It was when he last had a match. So that aside, this can escalate, but I believe Mike needs to be prepared. It should not be to go knock the guy out, not to hurt the guy or make the guy look bad. Mike should go out there and prepare for 8 rounds and outbox the supposedly better boxer.
I find that very interesting. And, I love Mike. He's my brother. I find that very interesting because Mike can box, but Mike likes to box maybe 1 or 2 rounds. And then, he gets pissed off, right? And it's on after that, if it even takes 2 rounds, So, Jeff, you've worked with Mike. Well, both of you have, you and Tom both. Jeff, what's your take on that from just to help me to kind of get a better understanding? Because I'm looking at it from the same way Tom looking at it now. I have some very serious concerns that I think in a situation like this, Roy may probably have the ability to stay a little bit more humble and more I don't want to say focused. They both will be focused, but I will say, have their, what do you call it? The respect of having the, what I'm trying to say, guys.
To control
the discipline.
Roy Jones to control the tempo.
Discipline. Jesus, I couldn't find that word if I needed it, if it was in front of me on the floor. But the discipline. Now. So Jeff and Tom, what do you think about that? Because I think in this particular match, Roy probably might have a little bit more discipline than our brother Mike, if that's fair to even assume.
You know, to be honest, I don't really. I'm kind of worried that if Mike does hit Roy, that like Roy's been knocked out by Danny Green. He's been knocked out by a few other people. If Mike hits him, wow, I don't know. To me,
it's a different thing. Yeah.
Jeff, I think you have a really good point right there. Is that there's a power and speed combination, and that's what it's going to come down to. The lion fighting the chicken.
But Mike gets frustrated though, Scott.
And I think in my own, Daryl, my own opinion, and I want to talk to you about this more. I think that like from right now to the point of the fight, he's got to have the people around him to support him psychologically. Again, when people get to that level, they're both amazing. They really are. But it's who has the right support, who has the right positive affirmations, who's speaking to them the right way, who's saying, Mike, that was good, but it could be a little better. I think that right now, that's going to be the key, is the support around him. And, I've talked to Tom, briefly about this. And, it's really what it comes down to last minute is the support. And I think that to keep a strong mindset, if he has it, or to develop it, might be tough in a couple of weeks. But I think I saw where he's at. And I think if we can maintain that, and please jump in, there has to be somebody consistently around him.